We continue with our focus on South Africa's water crisis. We take a look now at how climate change impacts our water management systems. A study published in Nature Reviews Earth and Environment reveals that river water quality tends to deteriorate during extreme weather events. And as these events become more frequent, access to safe water may be increasingly under threat. I'm joined now by Benoît Leroy, who is the CEO at the SA Water Chamber. Benoît, thank you for making time for us on Newsfeed PM this afternoon. What challenges does climate change and the increases in drought and rainstorms pose on our water management systems?
Thanks, Clement. And so the way I look at it, those are problems. The challenge is how you're going to resolve it. And so around the semantics is there's two things with climate change. One, it's stochastic, so it's unpredictable, which means you need to have the best systems in place, be it logistics, communication, water, sanitation, and you need to have the best and brightest and most competent individuals running those systems and designing and maintaining them. And we know that we fail on all of these dismally at the moment, just looking at the symptoms that we have. So we've got to change. We've got to change our view. And we've seen in Europe, for example, now in the wealthy Northern Hemisphere, where they've had drought, fires, and floods. And there's a statement made by the World Insurers Guild that something like 90 to 95% of the claims in the last 5 years on natural disasters are water. Water is the root cause. So water, we either got too much or not enough. But, in the introduction, you're talking about our water reserve. And our water reserve is very healthy at the moment. If you look at the volume, if you look at the quality, no, it isn't. 97% of our sewage plants, according to government, do not comply to a very low green drop standard. So we're polluting it. But as you say, with climate change, what happens is we get these vagaries in temperatures. Now, we've had a very hot September, and it's going to be hot again this week. And what happens is polluted waterways tend to eutrophy and, in other words, go rotten, in layman's terms, much quicker than they do when it's cold. So we're polluting our environment, we're polluting our water resource, and what's happening is we're wasting half the water for our cities and towns and the industry. So we use roughly per person about 125, 150 liters per person per day. The government says we use double that. No, government produces double that for the cities, but half is 50-60% is lost through leaking systems. But this is the small water. The big water is actually agriculture. Agriculture uses globally about 70 to 80%. South Africa is 63% of the water. And with higher temperatures, you get high evaporation rates. And we find the evaporation rates in our dams is increasing. And we are still storing in this century water above ground when the global trend is to store it below ground. And we have not really started on that. So we need to start storing water in different places. We need to store less that's subject to evaporation. And so, that brings us to the story of what do we actually do. So firstly, with agriculture doesn't really waste water willfully because their biggest cost is not the water price. It's the electricity that they need to move the water around, to abstract and to push it around and to irrigate. So they're not really wasteful, and there's always improvements on the go for them to reduce their water demand and the energy demand and the input costs. But, we're using a lot of water on the coast when we have a reservoir that's increasing in height called the sea. And we have natural evaporation daily that produces clouds and rains over the sea and over land, etc. Natural water cycle, we call it desalination. We can accelerate that. And parts of the world that don't have reliable rainfall have been doing this for quite a long time. So the technology is quite mature. We need to start doing that because what you do is you desalinate according to what you need and you put it straight into the system. You don't have big reservoirs. You don't put it into dams. Put it straight into the system. What that does then, it liberates upflow water inland for other uses and for other towns. And also, we need to start recharging our aquifers with treated sewage, but properly treated sewage recharge the aquifers, as we've been doing in Atlantis for several decades, but it's the only place that we're really doing it in a big way. This is a huge trend in Australia, Pacific Rim, North America and Europe now, is to put your water, your treated sewage, instead of putting it into the sea, put it back into the aquifers and recharge that, and in time reuse that and blend that into the potable or irrigation water system. So Cape Town has got a plan to do this, and it will be able to. Its insurance policy, it states, is 99.9% water availability, which is an extremely high water availability.
So clearly our challenges then are not only about the availability of water, but it's, as you have stipulated, the quality of that water as well. There's research that's been done on water quality in rivers worldwide. What did that find about river water quality?
So in the emerging or poorer economies, generally speaking, it's extremely poor. And that's why tap water is, generally speaking, not viewed as fit for human consumption. But what we found in the EU and the UK, there's a lot more spillages and all this. And these are because not enough has been spent in water infrastructure. And whether it's privatized or not is not the issue. Not enough is being spent. So we need to spend more in it because we have more people on this earth with the same amount of water. The water hasn't changed. So we have to spend more. And, it's the cheapest commodity around. We can't live without it. So, it hurts us. Our pockets are tired at the moment. Interest rates are high and the likes. Water prices are escalating worldwide purely because of the quality issues and also because of the emerging contaminants now. We are finding out stuff we didn't know before. For example, small plastics and antibiotics, etc. And all of these, we're starting to find them in the food chain and all this. And these will end up, reducing our life expectancy if you don't address it. So we have new issues, new disease, new contaminants that we have to address, which are extremely expensive in relative terms to actually treat. So we're going to start seeing, it's a global thing, that the price of water increases. It's highly contested, but more than half of the world's sewage is not treated. It goes into rivers and into the sea. And so in South Africa, we're not good. We're the best out of a bad bunch, but we do have a lot of sewage works. We've got over 1,000 sewage works for a country of 60 million people, which is a lot better than most emerging economies. That they don't work properly, we can't fix. And we need to fix that, because climate change is going to test us it is starting to test us to the limits. So we need to be smart. We need to plan ahead. And if you look at eThekwini, what's happened to eThekwini, with tourism collapsing and this, and climate change is not the root cause. It's infrastructure that was old and decrepit and not resilient enough to withstand climate change. And we know exactly in those floods what happened with the canals bursting, etc. It's because they weren't maintained. So it was completely avoidable despite the high level of rainfall that we are getting. And it's only going to get worse as the temperatures increase. So we've got to plan, accordingly. And we're very adaptive in Southern Africa. We've been for a long time. So I believe that we can do it. We just sometimes need a little bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah. What's the impact of land use and other human factors such as wastewater treatment in all of this?
Yes, so we didn't realize this, at the advent of the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. We didn't realize that, the more areas that we put housing on and buildings and roads and paving, what happens is the runoff gets increased, and that has to be channeled properly. In the past, it used to go into the ground, and we had wetlands. Most of our wetlands in the world have rivers and airports, and for floods and the likes. So the part of the Smart City Initiative globally, from a water perspective, apart from digitizing things, is also to look at creating cities that are natural sponges, so that we are able to let that water go down as opposed to go across the cities and create havoc. As we've seen in China in the last couple of weeks, huge floods purely because they've overdeveloped their cities and there's not enough sponge in there that feeds the groundwater. All this also leads to more water running with good soil into the sea as opposed to percolating into the ground, into our aquifers, because groundwater is only replenished by rain, nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Well, Benoît, let me thank you for making time for us this afternoon. Benoît Leroy, CEO at SA Water Chamber.